Hello, my name is Miss Throckmorton. We're going to have some story time, so grab a blanket and a loved one and enjoy the story of the Hypotheticus, which is about adaptive radiation. So this is called the Hypotheticus Beast. A Hypotheticus is a normal animal. It eats leaves and tubers. A male Hypotheticus meets a female, and they fall in love. More babies are born than can possibly survive. These are the ones that survived. Each Hypotheticus is slightly different than the other. This one has more hair. This one has a thicker neck. This one has some spots. And this one's claws are longer and it's a little bit shorter. Predators, such as the fanged toothed Hypotheticus, kept populations of the Hypotheticus in check. One of the offspring has more hair than most, known as the hairy Hypotheticus. One of the offspring has a slightly larger neck, known as the long-necked Hypotheticus. One of the offspring is a bit shorter and has longer claws. This is known as the clawed Hypotheticus. Let's go back to the beginning. Climate in Hypotheticus land became drastically dry for the next several years. Many of the shrubs are eaten or start to die. Natural resources are limited for the normal Hypotheticus. The normal Hypotheticus can't reach the leaves and there aren't enough shrubs to survive. The normal Hypotheticus has a difficult time surviving. Tuber roots just below the surface are eaten too quickly. Over thousands of years, the normal type Hypotheticus slowly have trouble surviving to reproduce. The fanged toothed Hypotheticus has no problems killing these tired and weaker species. The long-necked Hypotheticus tend to survive more often because they can reach leaves on trees. With more long-necked Hypotheticus surviving, long-necked Hypotheticus tend to mate with long-necked Hypotheticuses over millions of years. Over time, nature favors the long-necked Hypotheticus, and gradually, those offspring with longer necks survive more often to reproduce, and their offspring have long necks. And we get a new species with longer necks. But we're not done. Let's go back to the beginning. The clawed Hypotheticus can dig up tuber roots better than any other Hypotheticuses. Nature favors longer clawed Hypotheticus as they can reach the tubers. Slowly, over thousands and thousands of generations, the Hypotheticus gets shorter and gets larger claws for digging. Those that are shorter with longer claws survive more to reproduce. Their offspring are also shorter and clawed. Maybe it learns to dig and burrow in the earth to stay cool as the climate gets warmer. Maybe it loses its hair. It is also advantageous to be smaller to burrow better. Over thousands of years, the clawed group of the Hypotheticus find it difficult to mate with the normal Hypotheticus. Eventually, the two won't mate at all. Over hundreds of thousands to millions of years, a new species has evolved, and we get the second species coming from the Hypotheticus. This is called adaptive radiation. Let's go back to the beginning one final time. The hairy Hypotheticus. In this environment, having more hair keeps you drier and warmer in a cold climate. The long-haired Hypotheticus has a slightly better chance of survival. Populations of the hairy Hypotheticus are stable in size, except for some seasonal changes. The ones that have more hair survive more and thus reproduce more. Because traits are passed down, more and more hairy Hypotheticus result. The world is thrown into an ice age for 60,000 years. Only the most hairy Hypotheticus survive. I think it's safe to say that this one made it. Now, only really hairy Hypotheticus have survived, and they mate with other surviving hairy Hypotheticus. Over time, the hairy Hypotheticus is so different from the normal Hypotheticus that they can no longer mate. A new species has evolved, and this becomes our last new species from the Hypotheticus. The normal Hypotheticus went extinct, but its existence helped evolve several species. So from one original common ancestor, the original Hypotheticus, we had an environment where the food was moved higher, and so those with longer necks were better able to survive. When the environment got warmer and the food source was lower, having claws and less hair, they were more likely to survive. And when the temperatures dropped and having more hair, this last species was more likely to survive. So we have this phylogenetic tree or evolutionary tree which will show the relatedness of those three new species from that Hypotheticus that went extinct. Interestingly, based on both morphological and biochemical evidence, it is agreed that the manatees, the dugongs, and the hyraces are the closest living relatives to today's elephants. This extinct species being their common ancestor. So while these organisms might not look very similar to each other, when we place them on the phylogenetic tree or that evolutionary tree, we can see that they share this common ancestor. And remember, with adaptive radiation, these organisms take on new forms when there's been that change in the environment, new resources are available, and they have different environmental pressures placed upon them. Now the fun part. You need to create a storybook about your own type of unique Hypotheticus. Please include the mechanism for change. Create pictures, have fun with names. Provide text above or below the pictures. Your Hypotheticus should change into a new animal or many animals over many thousands to millions of years. Use technology if you want, or you can use paper. Use your creative abilities. Be prepared for story time. The remainder of this video is for those of you looking for an example. So this is an example story using a combination of paint images and PowerPoint drawing. If you feel comfortable, you can move on and start working. Remember to keep it simple for time's sake. Copy and paste is going to save you time. So this is the story of Todd the tortoise, and then of course you would add your name under the title. This is a story of Todd the tortoise and how he got his shell. One day, Tom saw the love of his life, Tina the tortoise. They went behind a rock and decided to start a family. Tina laid many eggs. More were born than can possibly survive. Natural resources are limited. Sammy the snake enjoys eating tortoise eggs and baby tortoise. Only a few of the eggs survived to hatch into baby tortoise. No two individuals were alike, and baby Todd had this weird shell on his back. Predators, such as Sammy the snake, kept populations of tortoise in check. One day, Todd met another female turtle that had a small shell thing on her back. They went behind a rock and decided to start a family. Variation is inheritable, and most of the offspring also had this shell. Todd Jr. bumped into Sammy the snake one day as an adult tortoise. Todd's hard shell made it very difficult for Sammy to eat him. shelled tortoise began surviving more often and were able to reproduce. Over time, more shelled tortoise survived because nature selected their shell for survival. Their offspring were also shelled. A new species was eventually born. The end. I hope this helps. Good luck on your Hypotheticus. Remember to be creative and follow the guidelines. Have fun!